So many moms feel stuck and isolated, like they've got to keep it all together and can't say how hard it really is. On Let's Get Real, we talk about the real stuff, motherhood, mental health, and everything in between, so you don't feel like you have to carry it alone anymore. Because in order to heal, we have to get real. If you're feeling overwhelmed, grab the Overwhelmed Moms Guide. It's totally free and made to help you feel like yourself again. The link is in the show notes. Let's jump in. Motherhood is already demanding, but when you're a caregiver to a child with special needs or ongoing medical needs, the weight multiplies. You love fiercely, but you're also exhausted, stretched thin, and often silently carrying feelings of guilt, grief, or resentment. Too many moms think they're alone in this, or that it's selfish to admit they're struggling. But the truth is, you matter too, and learning to care for yourself is the only way to keep caring for the ones you love. Today's guest, Lynette Weldon, knows this firsthand. As a mom, longtime caregiver, and alternative healing practitioner with over 20 years of experience, she's developed powerful strategies to help caregivers move beyond burnout and rediscover their worth, purpose, and wholeness. Lynette, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to get to talk about this topic of caregiver burnout, how to recover from that, and just what this looks like as a mom, and you're taking care of kids and you're in that role as a caregiver. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Well, as we get started, I would love it if you could just walk us through this road that you've experienced both personally and professionally. Can you share a little bit of your story and what made you realize that caregiver burnout wasn't just something to push through, but something that really needed to be healed?
It really started for me when I was a teenager, and it started watching my mom care for my dad, who had multiple brain tumors, multiple surgeries, radiation, chemotherapy, all of that, and just watching how it affected her and how much she gave constantly, and not only took care of him, but also held down a job, tried to raise a family. And I remember at that point in my life, I was young, and you don't really know how to help when you're 12, right? But I do remember thinking, ever want to end up like that? And then fast forward to, I'm in my 20s, and I have a daughter who was born with Down syndrome, a hole in her heart, was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes at 8 months old, several autoimmune issues. And so now I'm in that role as a caregiver. And, nobody prepares you for it. It's something that just happens and you're just thrown into it. And for a lot of the women that I work with, and for me personally, I know that one day I just kind of woke up and looked in the mirror and didn't even recognize who I was anymore. You are always giving and giving and giving, and you put yourself last, and you just kind of put your head down and power through and do what needs to be done. And so that's my personal history with it. And, I just one day thought, I can't keep going like this. And so decided to make some changes and to actually look at things different, do things differently, and decided that I mattered too. And so what I started to do and implement worked. And I just had, it was just on my heart to help other women who are going through this. And, men also go through the same thing. So that's how it kind of all started. Wow. Yeah, that's huge. And one of the things that struck me that you were saying earlier is from when you were observing this with your mom, and you're like, I don't want to end up like that. In that example, what did you see in her where you're like, this is not what I want? I saw her exhausted all the time. I saw her lash out at people that she loved, at us as kids, snap at us, not have any patience left. I saw her cope with the stress in unhealthy ways. And I also saw her never, ever ask for help, or, I don't think she ever complained either. She held it all in. And when we do that, it's not good for us physically or emotionally. But, those are some of the things that I saw, and, a lot of isolation too.
Yeah. It's like the physical it can be a physical isolation and the emotional isolation from holding it all in. And then you had shared a little bit ago, then it still will come out, but it comes out looking differently. And then it can be confusing as a kid where you're like, whoa, why did you just lash out at me? I don't understand. But it's like not knowing how to express it and then who to even take that to. But so it's super helpful just to hear what those aspects were where you're like, this isn't, I know it's not good. Like as a kid, it's hard to put words to it, but you get to see this day in and day out, which I think is really helpful to name. Yeah. So what do you see typically happens to moms when they're in caregiving mode long term, especially when caregiving for children with special needs?
There's a lot of layers to that one. I think that, for one, we put ourselves last. We love our kids more than we love ourselves most often. And when you throw in a child who has special needs or any medical issues or, any of that, that's your number one focus. You become their biggest advocate. And that's all you think about is doing the best thing that you can for them, getting them, the best help, the best medical care, the best school, all of it, and it becomes a full-time job to advocate for your child. And, that brings back a lot of memories. I know that it got to the point when I would walk into school and I could see them look, oh my God, here comes Mrs. Weldon again. Because I was on it all the time. I wanted to make sure that she had what every other child had. And so it becomes another full-time job on top of everything else that you're doing, really.
And it's like, I could see how it's all consuming. That is at the forefront of your mind and how easy it is. Like the picture that's coming up is it's almost in a way because it's so consuming and it's new and you're trying to navigate this new territory. It really would be easy to leave yourself behind, to forget yourself because you're thinking of your child and it's just this forgetting. Yeah. What you said, I think, is really powerful earlier is that I matter too, which can be, I think that I would imagine could be a really hard place to even get to, and there could be a lot of emotions around that. What have you seen are some of the emotional realities that mom often feel, but are afraid to admit?
Oh, wow. There's a lot. I think that sometimes as mothers and caregivers, we start to feel a little resentful that we are always last on the list. And we don't verbalize that because we don't want to be judged. And we don't want people to think that we don't care as much as we actually truly do care. A lot of times there's, especially for caregivers and parents who have a child that is born with a disability, there's a grieving process that they go through. What they envisioned is no longer going to happen. What they thought. There's so many emotions. And one of the things I think that most of the women that I work with do is they try to hide how they really truly feel. They don't want anybody to judge them. They don't want to look bad. And so they kind of just shove it all down. And that really starts to affect your self-worth and how you just even move through the world. So there's a lot of hiding that goes on until they feel safe enough and understand that what they're feeling is normal. All those emotions, the anger, the resentment, the grieving, all of that is very normal in this situation. And when they finally have somebody who says, you know what, I felt that too, it gives them an opportunity to then start to talk about it, open up, and start to deal with some of those emotions.
That's so good. And I think it can be underestimated just how important that part of it is. Why do you think that it is so important to name these struggles and emotions out loud instead of just burying them?
Well, when we don't deal with things, they're going to come out a different way, right? If we just shove things down, they're going to come out one way or the other. It might come out in lashing out. It might come out with some women might spend too much money, or they might drink to forget about things, or it's gonna come out one way or the other. And the only way to really deal with it and move through it and change how you feel and how you look at things is to actually say it out loud, name it, and then start to ask yourself some different questions. And, I truly believe that there is always something good and no matter what's going on in your life. And then if we can learn to look at things differently and ask ourselves different questions and start to kind of challenge some of the beliefs that we have around why we feel the way we do and why we think the way we do, then we can start to kind of shift how we feel and how we react and respond and move through life.
Yes, that's another really good point, because I can see how bearing our feelings and not having a space to just share and talk about it without feeling like you have to put on a heavy filter and worry about somebody judging you, then you can actually kind of tease apart what faulty beliefs might be there. And because like you said a little bit ago, where it affects the way that they move and navigate throughout the world. Well, so much of that comes from these beliefs, but we won't get the chance to really identify and name what they are if we don't have the space to share honestly out loud, without this being a matter of like right or wrong. Like, you're not wrong for feeling these things. It's part of being human and needing to navigate that. So on this topic of beliefs, what are some of the common beliefs that moms in caregiving roles develop? Everybody
has to come first. I should be last. It's selfish if I think about me. It's selfish if I take time off. I shouldn't say that. I might hurt somebody's feelings. I can't say no. I might hurt somebody's feelings. They might get upset. They might think I don't care. There's so many false beliefs that come into play into this. And it's what we were taught as kids. We form beliefs by what we're taught by our parents or society or schools or religion. And we just kind of believe them. We don't ever, do any critical thinking around it.
Yes.
Because you can change your belief. Yeah.
You can. Yeah. So what have you seen, like in working with different clients, happens to a mom, her kids, and her family when these beliefs go unchallenged?
They just continue, doing the same thing over and over and over, and nothing changes. And that's the definition of insanity, right? When we do the same thing over and over and expect different results. And until you start to look at all of that, nothing is going to change. And so you're just going to continue the way you are now. You're going to be frustrated, feel stuck, and a lot of women just kind of cave to, well, I guess this is my life then. And it doesn't have to be that way.
It's almost like unchallenging these beliefs by not bringing what they're really feeling to somebody and taking a look at that and just letting these beliefs that really can be harmful, they can be damaging, they kind of act like weeds where they just grow. And then it shapes the actions that we continue to take. So, I'm curious too, in your own experience, how did you create space for yourself? Because I feel like there's such this like time and energy constraint where it's like so much of it being in the caregiving role, it is, like you said, another full-time job. And there can be that struggle of like having the mental bandwidth and capacity and the energy and the time. So like, what did that look like for you? And what have you seen for other clients as far as creating space for yourself to exist and kind of start reclaiming your sense of worth and identity as well?
Well, I think in the beginning, you just have to learn how to take a few minutes here and there. Because if you talk to a woman right now who's completely overwhelmed, they're going to say, I don't have time. And, so it's just finding those moments throughout the day that you can take. Even if it's just 5 minutes there, 5 minutes here, you can find them. And that's where it starts. And I think that once you're able to take some of those times throughout the day, you start to crave more, you want more. And so you start to look at, okay, because there's several ways you can free up time. What am I doing that I don't really have to do, but I just think I have to? What can I delegate? What can I put off? What can I ask somebody else to do? And it's the other part of that too, is them really believing that they're worth it. They are worthy of taking that time. And I think for a lot of women, when you say the word self-care, they think, oh, a day out with friends or a weekend away, or it doesn't, that's not really what self-care means. It's just being diligent about the time that you need and taking it, and then learning that it's okay. And I don't have to feel guilty about it, that I matter just as much.
Yes. So helpful. I think that's big. And what you just hit on was at that deep core belief of I'm not worth it. Right. And then really being able, I love this because it isn't big. It doesn't have to start big. It can be a few moments and a few minutes, which do exist, but sometimes we have to look for it or identify what excuses we're telling ourselves that's keeping us from taking the time to care for ourselves. Because I feel similar to you as far as self-care, where I'm like, it's so annoying, that word, to hear, because it's overused and we don't really understand what it actually means. And it is, and what we see, just like, especially as moms, we are excellent at taking care of other people, taking care of our kids. We can anticipate even their needs before they ever ask for it. But often we struggle to take care of us. And that's all it is. It's taking care of ourselves in the same way that we're taking care of other people. So it doesn't have to be big, grandiose. Like I'm so glad you highlighted that, because that's not realistic. And that's not what this is. It's like these regular incremental rhythms, and starting small, and then just trial and error of discovering and reconnecting with you and being like, what actually fills me up? What is helping me? Because it's not going to look the same for everybody. And a lot of times it's been so long since we've done that, we have no idea.
Well, and I love the fact that you said that word is overused, because it really is. I wish I could come up with a different word for it. It's almost like it's the buzzword now, but it is way overused in the wrong ways a lot of time too.
Yes, it is. And I feel like it almost can be weaponized, or this way of even being used to escape. I'm going to escape my reality and call it self-care and leave. You know, some of it, like there is like a truth to having, if you haven't seen your girlfriends and they live in other states, there's a part of that, but there's for a deeper purpose of connection and filling up relationally in that way. It's not to escape your life. And I think that's where it can be misconstrued. In addition to kind of sharing some of these examples, what does it practically look like for a mom to begin caring for herself while she's still in the thick of caregiving?
Well, there's a few things. You know, in the morning, we have a tendency to jump out of bed and our mind is racing right away with everything that we have to do. And so one of the things that I tell the women I work with is make it a habit that you don't jump out of bed. Give yourself even an extra 2 or 3 minutes to just be, you know, do some gratitude work, set an intention for the day. How do you want to feel today? What are maybe 3 things you want to accomplish, and then let the rest go? You know, that's an easy one. Breath work, step outside for 5 minutes. You know, if you're feeling like turning into chaos, step outside for 5 minutes, take a coffee break. You know, there's so many little things that you can do throughout the day. Make a playlist of your favorite music that either gives you energy or calms you down. I'm a big one on journaling, and not journaling things that went wrong, but journaling things that went right. I think that we don't celebrate enough even the little things that are good. And you can either think negative or think positive, and whichever one you choose, you're going to attract more. I think one of the biggest comments I get is, well, how can I be grateful if I'm not happy? And I think that it's the opposite. I think that we become happy when we learn to be grateful, even just for little things that we have in our life.
That's so true. And I feel like there's both, because in one way, I used to think that gratitude was pretending like the hard didn't exist and just like, don't talk about it, don't acknowledge it. But this is kind of where the grieving part comes in. And so the thing that I've been learning is how we can hold both grief and gratitude. And there is space, because I think especially when you go through something so difficult and painful and you just kind of have these shattered dreams, we don't know what to do with the pain. And we want to jump to the feel good, happy feelings. We want to just try to force gratitude and all of that without first being able to acknowledge what we're feeling and what we're dealing with. And we can do both, where it doesn't have to be. And like, I think it's a good point too, that sometimes it's the pendulum swing where when we do finally let ourselves grieve and we do share, we like are honest about what we're going through, we can get to a place where we're stuck in the negative, and that is what we focus on most of the time. And so it is helpful to have this shift of like, again, being able to do both and be like, this is what was hard today, but where there was progress, and identifying those things that are also good. And sometimes you have to like really dig for it. But yeah, just being able to hold both, which is really hard. It's tough, but I love these examples though that you gave, because so often it's like, hey, I want to do this, but like, where do I start? And like, what practically do I do just for these small periods of time? And so I think that's really helpful. So thank you. How do you think guilt plays into this, especially for moms who feel like prioritizing themselves, it's just selfish?
Oh, I think as moms, even as women, we have a tendency to take on way too much guilt and feel guilty for things we shouldn't even feel guilty for, right? But I think a lot of it is we feel guilty when we can't do everything. We feel guilty like we're not giving enough when we're over giving. And then when we take a step back and decide, well, I'm going to take some time for me, then we feel guilty about that. So guilt is a huge one. And I think that, you know, we're always going to feel guilty. It's just a matter of recognizing that, you know, we might feel that way, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I still have moments of guilt. If I take a whole day, then I feel guilty. I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And it's kind of just learning. The other thing too is learning how to, you know, catch that tape that plays in our head, that loop that goes all the time. I should have, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, that kind of helps with the guilt, I think. But it really comes down to just believing that we're worth it.
Yes, exactly. And I do feel, because this is such a struggle. I mean, the struggle, and it's so unfortunate because there's often so many experiences people have that reinforce the belief that they're not, right? And so then in trying to like reclaim that, it really is like taking very courageous, bold, brave steps where people then you're inviting people to not understand and to judge you for reclaiming your sense of value and worth. And I've been in recovery from codependency for about the past few years. And one of the things, the biggest challenges in recovery has been believing that I'm equally as important. I equally matter and have the same value and worth as anybody else. Because too often I would look as feeling less than and believing I am less than and putting somebody else on a pedestal or believing they have more value and worth than I do. So then it was just such a nasty cycle. But it's been one of the biggest challenges in recovery is truly believing like we are equal. And it's not that I'm more important and more valuable. I matter just as much. And it does affect like how we show up for our kids. And I think it's helpful that you had firsthand experience with your mom and then also stepping into the role as a mom with your daughter, where it's like, okay, learning from that experience, knowing what it was like as the child, and then getting to the place of waking up and think, I don't know who I am. And there is a way to recover from burnout. There's a way to reclaim your life, even when the heart is still there. Yeah. What were some of those first steps that you took in being like, okay, I matter too, and I got to figure out who I am? Do you remember what some of those first things were?
Learning how to take some time for myself. Well, just deciding that, you know, I think the biggest thing for me is I recognize that if I didn't start taking care of myself, that I was not going to be able to take care of anybody else. So that was the biggest motivator for me. And notice it wasn't because I thought I was worth it. It was because I was afraid I couldn't take care of them.
Oh,
Believing that I was
interesting.
worth it came later, right?
Yeah.
But so that was the reason I decided something had to change, because I knew I couldn't continue. And then, if things were going this way, I wasn't going to be able to take care of them. So I wouldn't be a very good caregiver, mother, etc. And so that was my motivator right there. And, I just decided that, why am I not worth taking care of myself? And so I started to verbalize it, really. And I started, to just ask for help once in a while, which was really hard for me because I was a doer. I'm doing it myself. I don't need your help,
Yes.
And then the other thing too, Jenna, the huge thing is learning how to set boundaries and say no, which is really hard for the person who is always saying yes to everybody else. So those are really the first steps in all of that. And, remembering who you were before it all happened too. I thought about it. What did I used to do that made me happy? Because I'm not happy right now.
Right.
And trying to find pieces of that I could do again.
That's so good. You highlighted and made such a good point about the initial steps. It came from a different motivation before the I'm worth it and I matter too. It came from realizing, oh crap, if I don't take care of myself, I will be of no good to help anybody else. Yeah. So that was the beginning stages to get to that place of then being able to address that belief. And what was it in dealing with and addressing that belief that I don't matter as much? What helped you move out of that and into actually believing that you were worth it too?
I guess because of the people around me, maybe, my husband also at the time, he was always my biggest supporter. I just didn't believe it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he was a big help. And, nobody's asked me that question before. That's a good question, Jenna. I don't know, but it just happened, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you had people in your life, that community. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. I think some people can think they need a lot, but you don't. But too often going through something like this, it can feel so isolating. And so I don't know, that's kind of what I'm hearing as you're sharing this, that it sounds like might have contributed, is having that level of community and supportive people around you to further validate that you do matter. As you're starting to believe it yourself, and they're there supporting you and believing for you as you're navigating.
Yeah, I did. I had people around me who supported me. I also had people around me who thought it was selfish that, I would even think of myself. So you have to be aware of that too. And I think that a lot of times we think just because we're their family that they have to be involved. And I think sometimes, and what I did for myself is recognize who was healthy and who wasn't, and surrounded myself on purpose with people who were healthy and had my own family, my own tribe.
Yes, created that.
Yeah.
I think that's so important because it really it just affects what you do. I just, the vacillating internally of going back and forth, especially when you're in that place of how do I protect myself and keep myself safe from being judged? I'm trying to figure out how to take care of myself. And yet I have people who are telling me, that I'm selfish for this, but I know I need this, and it will be great for my kids if I can come as a whole person. And then the struggle of making those decisions, if in the back of your mind or in your ear, you're hearing that other stuff. And that's a hard decision to make, but I think it's so important to bring up. And it doesn't matter if it's blood family. It's about intentionally choosing healthy people, and they can choose to go get healthy or not. But if they don't,
Right,
like you can
exactly.
keep the boundaries you were talking about, saying, in
Yeah.
order for me, that's part of also taking care of yourself and being like, this is
Yep.
what I need to help me and then help make the best decisions for my kids. So yeah, that's very hard. And sometimes there's that sense of like, especially I think whether it's parents or whoever, where it's like, this is my right because I'm your mother or I'm your father. It's my right. But it's like, you got to challenge that too, because that's also a faulty belief. And that, yeah. So I'm really glad that you brought this up.
Well, and also with aging, you get to a point where you don't care anymore what you're going to be judged one way or the other. And so you just get to the point where you like who you are, you're comfortable in your own skin, you're going to speak your truth, and not everybody is going to agree with you, and that's okay.
Yes, exactly. It's so true. And then as you do that and people are not okay with it, you come back to that support system that you have of the people who are rooting for you and cheering for you to help. I think of that as just like helping regain strength. I'm like, oh, okay. Because sometimes it can be exhausting having to battle that. So that is so good. What would you say are the signs that you see when a mom is moving from burnout to wholeness?
Yeah, they start to talk different. They're, like in the groups that I hold with the caregivers, the first thing we do is we celebrate. What are you celebrating this week? What was your win? And that's the first thing that I recognize is that when they start to actually celebrate, they're making shifts in their life to be better and to feel better. They just start showing up different, it's hard to explain. They're okay with taking time for themselves. They're happier, they're lighter, they'll celebrate. And
oh my gosh, I think celebration would be a big indicator that you're shifting out of survival mode because I don't know. Our brains will not be able to think of that. When we're in survival mode, we are not thinking of like what we can do for fun and how to enjoy life more. What we can, you know what I mean? We are not. So I feel like, and I do think that's so underestimated too, because that is very powerful. Like that is so powerful. And it's funny because I had an interview with a lady. This was a few months back, but her son, she uses the term complex kid, and she was saying that celebration is also really big for her. And I'm like, that is so interesting, that common theme. And what you see in the group that you run for the people that are there, how important that is.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard, it's just anything little. What is one little tiny thing that you can celebrate? But that's the big indicator for me when they're starting to share some wins and some celebrations. And within that, you'll hear, I was able to take 2 hours away, or I finally got my hike in, I'm celebrating that, or, so they're actually, making the time and recognizing they deserve the time to do those things, to feel better, to remember who they are. And it just kind of all builds on each other.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And in doing that, it's just, I'm thinking of what you said, where you're seeing them make time for those things and normalizing that guilt will often follow, but you still choose to take those steps anyways. And as you do, then that guilt, it gets quieter and it weakens and it's not as big. It's just the process of learning how to move through it. Something that's coming to mind, because I'm thinking, I would imagine probably one of the markers too would be like asking for help. And that's only coming up because it's something that I have deeply struggled with, is like asking for help. And so much of that is deeply tied to, I'm not worth it. I don't matter as much. So I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb in the worst way and just become a shell of myself for everybody else so they can live their life. And so, I'm just thinking like of that being, I would imagine, because you're working with so many caregivers. So is that a common big hurdle for them, is the hurdle of being able to ask for help? And then do you see that tied to their worth?
Yes. Big time, big time. And the other thing also is that I think that the caregivers feel like if they have to ask for help, they're failing. They're doing something wrong. They're failing. They're not doing their job well enough, which then attacks their self-worth. It's just this vicious cycle. And, but that is one of the biggest things that they struggle with. They really, truly, in the beginning, you really think that you should be able to handle all of it yourself.
Yes.
And in the beginning, like I said, usually it's not something you plan for. You were thrown into it. And so you put your head down and you power through, and it becomes your norm. All of a sudden it's your norm to be doing everything for everybody all the time. And, and like I said, for them to ask for help, they feel like they must be failing somehow.
Yes. Which is so helpful to name that's the belief there. That's like one of the common beliefs, because if we don't name that, then we can't work through it and challenge it and be like, hey, this actually doesn't mean that it's true. But because as long as it stays there and it's in the dark, it like will continue this pattern, and it's such a lonely feeling. And I mean, all of that is just way too big of a burden for one person to bear. No one person was meant to carry the weight of that. And we need other people to come in. And so I love what you're doing and the work that you're doing. So I'm curious, as we're coming to a close here, where people can find you and connect with you and the different resources that you offer and all of that.
I am on Facebook. You can join. We have a private Facebook group, and I'm also on Facebook, Coaching with Lynette. I had to think about what that page name was.
Yeah,
I'm on TikTok. I should say I'm back on TikTok. I was kicked off of TikTok because I think I just spoke the truth too much. But I'm back on TikTok now. My website is LynetteWeldon.com. You can find a ton of information on my website about the different courses I offer, the coaching, the support options I have. That's where you can find me.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Lynette, for being here today and just getting to shed light on this topic. I know it's been tremendously helpful for me, and I know it's going to help other women who are in those similar situations. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who needs the reminder that she's not alone. Thank you so much for listening, friend. I cannot wait to talk with you next time. Thanks for listening to Let's Get Real. If you've been feeling stretched thin, stuck in survival mode, or like you've lost yourself in motherhood, I made something just for you. It's called the Overwhelmed Mom's Guide, and it's totally free. Inside, I walk you through simple steps to help you reconnect with who you are, find a bit more breathing room in your day, and start to feel like you again. You can grab it now. Just click the link in the show notes. You don't have to keep doing this alone. Let's take the next step together.